All right, Rob gave me the go-ahead. Let's do 169 in the church hymn. Let my life be a light. Let me live, blessed Lord, in the light of thy word. Let my life be a light on the hill, leading souls now astray to the straight and narrow way. Help me do some good deed while I live. Let my life be a light shining out through the night. May I help struggling ones to the fold, spreading cheer everywhere to the sad and the lone. Let my life be a light to some soul. Give me wisdom and power every day and every hour. Let me drink from the fountain above. Guide my footsteps aright through the dark, stormy night. Give me peace, give me joy, give me love. Let my life be a light shining out through the night. May I help struggling ones to the fold, spreading cheer everywhere to the sad and the lone. Let my life be a light to some soul. And as Bruce says, you know what to do on this last verse. Give me souls for my hire, let my life be on fire, lighting out to the world as a guide. Help me rescue someone sinking now with no hope, that in heaven we shall ever abide. Let my life be a light shining out through the night. May I help struggling ones to the fold, spreading cheer everywhere to the sad and the lone. Let my life be a light to some soul. Bruce always has to introduce Rob, so without further ado, let's all give a round.
Yeah, if you'd like to issue a complaint about this, you can email Bruce at. I was gonna come up with something. Thank you, dude. I appreciate that. Well, you find out where I'm fixing to ask everybody to turn, you might not say that no more. But anyway, before I forget, just a reminder, this Friday, October 24th, be packing shoe boxes, I guess, in the basement, and that'll start at 6 o'clock. If y'all want to come pack a shoe box. That's a good ministry. It's been going on here for umpteen years. Oh, sorry. I got to get that out of my ear. That ain't gonna work. All right. What else was I gonna do? Okay. If you got your Bibles and you we'll start off. We're gonna look mostly James chapter 3. That might make some of y'all want to get up and leave. I understand. James used to be my favorite book of the Bible. I try not to have favorites, but it's a good one, but it's also, it can be harsh at times. Forgive me for the lollipop. I get a nervous cough every once in a while when I get a little stressed, so I got to have something to kind of keep me from coughing on you all night. Wanted to start off with a saying and see if y'all can finish it for me. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but true statement? Not a bad statement, ain't it? Do what? That's a big one. Boy, howdy. I'd much rather take maybe not from Eric or somebody, I'd rather take a punch in the stomach sometimes and have, some people say some things that they have. I mean, sometimes that's tough to get over. You can usually heal a black eye in a few days, but words sometimes will stick with you. That can be really rough. So if you're familiar with the Bible at all, or if you're not, James chapter 3 is the first, we'll be looking at the first 12 verses, talks a lot about words. So that's what I titled it tonight, words. Wanted to start off with a couple questions like I always do. Actually, I like to do a little video clip. I had one, but I was like, they might not like that. Somebody might say something. So no videos tonight, sorry. How do we size up people? I'm not talking about like for a fight, but we're wanting to learn somebody, find out something about somebody. How do we do that? What's some ways that we figure people out? Ask questions.
Their
Actions. Your daughter comes home with a new boy. Dresses, looks. Okay. Observe. Okay.
Ask to see if somebody knows.
Right, ask around. Yeah, all those are good. I'm writing these down or remembering them. I've got a daughter that, will be there one day. Words, that's kind of, with the theme tonight, we're looking and thinking about words and our speech. So how important are our words? Very. What do you think about this statement? If you've been in church, you've probably heard it. Preach the gospel, and if necessary, use words. Ever heard that one? I tried looking it up. I think it was credited to somebody back in the early ADs. I don't remember if it was a bishop or a pope or somebody, but I personally don't like that statement because preaching of the gospel is using words. I get what they're saying. Your words can be empty if you can't back up what you're saying, or if your life doesn't have a good testimony, then sometimes your words are fruitless, but not using words to preach the gospel or spread. And I'm not just talking about preaching. I'm talking about testifying, witnessing, inviting people. Words are important. I've got a friend. He's not a Christian. I think he might have went to church when he was a little bit when he was young. He has no interest in coming to church. But if you watched him from a distance, he's a good dude. He don't cuss. He don't tell dirty jokes. He don't do anything like that. He's just a good dude, but he's not a Christian. So if somebody was watching him from a distance, that's not communicating the gospel. No different than if I lived right and I don't use words, I'm not communicating the gospel effectively. So our words are important. Sizing up people, if people like to do a lot of talking, a lot of times we can see if they're full of it or if they keep their promises, what kind of person they are by their words. Since I don't have a video tonight, I need an illustration. So does anybody in here feel like they have a really nice tongue? I need somebody to come up here and be a visual aid for me. I got a coupon up here for an oil change if anybody will come do it. No volunteers. All right, nobody. My tongue is not worthy to be on display. Anyway, no. Y'all can have this if you want it. It's in Rolston County. No, obviously, the Bible here in chapter 3, it talks about the tongue. Let's read a few verses. James, if you will, pop it up. We'll start in verse 1. James chapter 3, my brethren, be not many masters, knowing that we shall receive the greater condemnation. For in many things we offend all. If any man offend not in word, the same is a perfect man, and able also to bridle the whole body. Behold, we put bits in the horses' mouths, that they may obey us, and we turn about their whole body. Behold also the ships, which they be so great, and are driven of fierce winds, yet are they turned about with a very small helm, whithersoever the governor listeth. We'll stop right there for just a minute. Verse 1 there, when it talks about masters, that's basically, it's pretty much just saying teachers. Not, don't be quick to be in charge of everything. I'm in the position of teaching tonight. Sometimes you may be in the position of teaching or in a leadership in a different ministry in the church or whatever. And some people enjoy being in charge, and they feel like they need to be in charge, and so they want to be in charge of everything. And the Bible here is warning against that. Be not many masters. Don't be in charge of everything, knowing that we shall receive the greater condemnation. Now, is that talking about condemnation as in punishment and headed to hell? Okay, yeah, we have to answer for it, right. You're correct. The word condemnation there is not any kind of eternal judgment, but it's basically, or eternal punishment, I should be, but it's judgment. And when you're in a position of authority or people, you're speaking to a lot of people, you have a lot to answer for. God holds us accountable. We might not like those verses in the Bible that teach us that he holds us accountable for the things that we say, but he does say that we'll have to give an account for every idle word that we speak. That's not a popular one. In the Old Testament, oh my gosh, it just slipped my mind who it was. But he told them basically, if you don't tell the people, he said, you're guilty of their death. Their blood is on your hands if you don't tell the people what I'm telling you to tell them. Very important when you're in a position of authority or leadership in a church. Then also we get judgment from other people. When you're a public figure, you can think of some. You can think of a TV preacher or somebody that's well known. People go after them. They do. They really do. They even tried Billy Graham, and I've heard people put up booze, and I'll tell you why Billy Graham was bad and wrong. I'm like, really? You're really stretching there. But if you're in a position of leadership, you get a lot of judgment. You got a lot of accountability to God. You get a lot of judgment from people around you. And so the Bible's saying, don't be in a hurry to do that. For in many things we offend all. It's amazing to me how many times I offend people and I didn't even try. Didn't even realize. Really, that offended you? Or, all of a sudden they give me the cold shoulder for a few days or a couple weeks, and then you ask them and you find out that you offended them somehow. And I'm like, wow. So people are easily offended. In many things we offend all. The Bible tells us there that if we don't offend people with our words, that's same man that is a perfect man. And he's able to bridle or control the whole body. The word perfect there doesn't mean like we are like Jesus, as in being perfect, but the lexical definition is basically is not morally lacking, a complete. And so if we're able to control the mouth, it's like we're complete. We're going somewhere with this. The Bible's showing us something. In verse 3, it uses I love pictures, I love parables, I love stuff explained with examples. And so here the Bible uses a horse. Horse riders? Any horse riders? Oh, you have a horse? Do you? Okay. Horses don't like me. Anytime I've been on horses, and oh, it's really gentle. It's a gentle horse, real gentle. And I mean, I look like I'm on PBR. That horse just, I don't know what I do wrong, but me and horses just don't. I've rode one horse that was just amazing. So you probably understand the analogy here, the picture of putting a bit in a horse's mouth, and that's the steering wheel, right? Maybe I don't steer right. I don't. But I mean, basically, if you got a horse and he's been broken, I guess that's correct. You can drive him just like a car, and if you know how to kick him in the side, he'll kind of trot, and you just. I mean, that big old animal, what do they weigh? A couple thousand pounds? They weigh that much? You just drive him just like nothing, with a bit in his mouth. Do you know why it's in their mouth? Is like their mouth's tender or anything? Do you know that? It is? Okay. So there's a perfect reason for that. So you can drive a horse, turn his whole body there, it says in verse 3. Verse 4, it gives the picture of ships. And you got to think, we're not thinking about carnival cruises and such. We're thinking about BC AD ships with sails and a big wooden rudder at the back. I don't know if they had steering wheels back then or not, but you think about it, and it talks about during a strong wind. They're driven of fierce winds. And, it's really hard to understand, but a ship with the big sails that catch all the wind, they can be driven into the wind if you know what you're doing. It's really interesting. You don't necessarily drive in a straight line, but you can zigzag and drive into the wind that's blowing in your face. So it's given the picture there of something large being controlled by something so little. There again, we're headed somewhere. Where'd we get to? Verse 4? Yeah, so verse 5. Even so the tongue is a little member and boasteth great things. Behold, how great a matter a little fire kindleth. Now, I brought some matches. I was wanting to strike a match. I said, as soon as I do, that thing right there is going to go off and it won't quit. I like visual aids. What's the Bible trying to teach us right here? The tongue, I mean, it's not our physical tongue. It's talking about words, our speech. Stir up trouble. If I would have brought a match, the flame would have been smaller than my lollipop here that's rapidly shrinking. How much damage can I do with that? A lot. The word matter there in verse 5 is basically talking about wood. It's basically saying, behold, how great an amount of wood a little fire kindleth. So with that thought in mind, a little bitty fire, now, sometimes God likes to start fires pretty impressively. You'll get a few 100,000 volts of lightning that's hotter than the surface of the sun, and he starts a forest fire, and it burns hundreds and thousands of acres. That was an impressive start to that. But then you'll get a teenager or some person who's not thinking very well, and they want to go out and start a fire for fun, and how does it usually start? They don't have lightning bolts. They take a match or a lighter, a little bitty flame, and then they burn down half of California or Yosemite Park. That all starts very small, very, very small. Here the Bible tells us there in verse 5 about how small the tongue is. And, compared to your body, it's a small member of your body. But it can do a lot of damage. The tongue can do a lot of good, but it can do a lot of damage. A lot. What is as people, what is our natural bent or our natural inclination in our speech? What do we tend to do? Talk good, talk bad, uplifting, discouraging? Okay. Okay, so.
Situation. But if you come at me angry, I'm going to be angry back.
Does anybody in here have to work at being negative? Is it fair to say that's our natural inclination, is to be negative, to be hurtful? I feel like once God starts working in your life, you become a child of God. I believe a lot of times factors such as circumstances in our life, how people approach us, a lot of times is how we respond. So God already in those examples are working in your life, but you just leave a person of their own, no God influence whatsoever, we tend to be negative. You think that's because we want to believe it? We enjoy it, maybe? That's a good question. Verse 6, and the tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity. So is the tongue among our members, that it defileth the whole body, and setteth on fire the course of nature, and is set on fire of hell. Now, is that a positive description of your tongue? No. I mean, you ain't got to have me to explain that. I ain't got to look up no definitions on that. No. Our natural bent, our natural inclination is negative, bad, tear down. You know, and I've noticed, even in my life, as I have tried, I'm not saying I'm a mature Christian, but as I have tried to mature over the years and try to get away from negative conversations and downing people and talking bad, when you get around somebody else that's doing that, if you're not guarded, it's real easy to jump on board. Somebody's like, yeah, and she done that, and he done this, and I don't like the way they do that. It's easy. It's contagious, I guess is what I'm saying. Bad speech, negative thoughts, negative communication is contagious. It spreads, just like a fire. Fire spreads. Fire starts here. It starts small, but it spreads, and it's so easy. It's so contagious to talk negative and talk down about people. That is our natural inclination. I don't even know what that means. I got that wrote down. I don't even know what that means. Verse 7, for every kind of beast, and of birds, and of serpents, and of things of the sea is tamed, and hath been tamed of mankind. But the tongue can no man tame. It is an unruly evil, full of deadly poison. James chapter 1, verse 26 there, James, please. I should have gave him notice, I'm sorry. If any man among you seem to be religious, and bridleth not his tongue, but deceiveth his own heart, this man's religion is in vain. I'll leave it up there for 1 second. If he seems to be religious, but he can't control his tongue, his religion is in vain. Verse 8 says, but the tongue can no man tame. Puts us in a tough spot, don't it? If you can't tame your tongue, then your religion is in vain. But then it tells us there in verse 8 that the tongue can no man tame. So what do? That's a tough spot. What's that movie? Oh, brother, we're out there. Where art thou? We're in the barn, and we're in a tough spot. We're in a tough spot. Any thoughts on that? It's a tough one. Okay. We'll keep going. As I thought about this, I'm sorry. When I read this verse and I was thinking about these verses, a particular group of people popped in my mind. Now, let me throw the disclaimer out there that this is a blanket statement. It doesn't mean that everyone is guilty of this, okay? There can be people that are like this, but that doesn't mean that they're all bad. It's just a blanket statement. It's kind of a general. When I thought about these statements, no man can tame the tongue and our words and speaking hastily, I thought about competitive people. People that are competitive. because you're competitive, does that make you bad or wrong? No, it doesn't. But what do a lot of competitive people do when they lose? Trash talk? Would you say get mad? And then whose fault is it usually? Huh? Other person's, referee. How about Sunday? You're sitting there watching football. Your team loses last play of the game. I know Mark has never done this because I've never been in the room with him, but holding. How did they miss that? It's the referee's fault. How could they miss that call? Or if the referee calls your team for holding, they barely touched him. I mean, mad, just mad. I mean, you've seen it. You've seen YouTube videos of people breaking TVs and stuff over a lost game. So competitive people sometimes struggle with controlling your tongue. I mean, we all do, but I mean, that's just a group of people that popped in my mind. You know, as I thought about competitive people, I'm like, man, I'm throwing them all in a box and making them all look bad. I always looked at competitive people as have a great potential in ministry. You know, if you think about think about lost people that got saved, you think about somebody that was a drunk their whole life and they got saved and now they don't drink no more. Or you think about a greedy person that was greedy and robbed people and done crooked business, and then they get saved, and then now they're doing their business honestly and giving to the Lord and giving to ministries. And we stand back and we're like, man, what a change God made in their life. It's visible. Before they were doing this and now they're doing that. And I thought about the competitive people that, you know, maybe somebody popped in your mind, or maybe you're thinking of yourself, and I'm going to chase a rabbit. Can I chase a rabbit? Y'all help me come back where I'm coming to, all right? I played softball with that man right there for years. Years. And it was years ago, wasn't it, Gary? Years ago. I never seen that man do anything that I thought he should be ashamed of. I did. I was watching. I ain't saying you was perfect, but I seen a lot of people acting like they shouldn't, and he was always a good example to me. I appreciate that. So, where was I? Competitive people? Competitive people? Okay, so yeah, the greedy person gets saved, the drunk gets saved, and you think about it like a competitive person that always had a bad temper and was always just pitching a fit every time they lost and blah, 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 and then God saved them, and just imagine if their attitude changed, and when they lost, they was fine with it. And maybe they went and said something good to the person that beat them, or didn't complain. I mean, there's a world of opportunity right there. But the Bible tells us in these verses that taming the tongue, it tells us there in verse 8 that no man can tame it. So we probably need some help. Right. Yeah, you always have to overcome those negative sayers. Yeah, you're exactly right. But yeah, so the Bible tells us that no man can tame the tongue. We can learn a few things right there. First of all, I think we need help. Who can we get help from to tame our tongue? God, especially through the power of the Holy Spirit. You know, God said, and Jesus said that he would send the Comforter to us to help us, and we'd be able to do great things. And he even told his disciples they'll be do greater things than he done, and all that's through the Holy Spirit. So, if we can't tame the tongue on our own, we need help from the Holy Spirit. And so, we all wrestle with it. We all do. Some worse than others. Some just, I mean, controlling the tongue it's just like a bottle of alcohol to the alcoholic. It's hard to overcome. Other people don't have no problem sitting, if they're an alcoholic, they don't have, or not alcoholic, they don't have no problem with a bottle in front of them. But if that's what you're bent towards, if that's your problem area. So people that have more of a problem with their tongue and their word, that's a difficult thing. And so you need to ask the Holy Spirit to help your words, help your conversation. Okay, so it says there in verse 8, the tongue can no man tame, but is an unruly evil full of deadly poison. Therewith, in verse 9, therewith bless we God, even the Father, and therewith curse we men, which are made after the similitude of God. Verse 10, out of the same mouth proceedeth blessing and cursing. My brethren, these things ought not so to be. What is the tongue an extension of? It's not our physical tongue. It's our, is it mine red? A little bit. I'll try to get y'all to laugh a little bit. I'm sorry. Obviously our physical tongue, but here it's our speech, our words. What are our words an extension of? What is spilling out through our words? Heart's thought. Okay. That's a tough one. Is it our mind or is it our heart? Mind, heart. It's a tough one, right? Maybe sometimes it's both. James, Luke chapter 6, verse 45. You can go ahead and pop that up when you get it, please. A good man out of the good treasure of his heart bringeth forth that which is good. And an evil man out of the evil treasure of his heart bringeth forth that which is evil. For of the abundance of the heart his mouth speaketh. So, and then the Bible also tells us, Jeremiah chapter 17, verse 9. Did I give you that one, dude? I did. The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? So, a lot of that's what's coming out of our heart. What spills out of our mouth comes out of our heart. Us, the inside. Not the show that all y'all see, or I see, or people see. Not what we do, our good acts, our good deeds, our church attendance, our what have you, helping the homeless and packing shoe boxes and all those good deeds, which are great. The book of James talks about that. I thought about going that route. But talking about our words and what's spilling out of our heart. So that leads us to believe that, or leads me to believe that, and kind of like Brian said a while ago, the person that tries to recover, people keep bringing them down. It's like we don't ever truly get over it, because there's been times in my life that I feel like I'm going to use the word mastered, but I have got past a certain sin in my life. I've got that one conquered. And then months, years later down the road, I just done it. And I'm like, what? Where did that come from? Did I really just do that? All this time I've not had a problem, and then here I am again. It's a tough one. So controlling the tongue, the bits in the mouth, the steering of the ship, the great fire that it can kindle. It's full of unruly evil, full of deadly poison, the not so glamorous picture. I thought about there when it talks about out of the same mouth proceeds blessing and cursing. My brethren, these things ought not so to be. Verse 11, doth a fountain send forth at the same place sweet water and bitter? I thought about our water fountain back there. Obviously, they didn't have water fountains then, but if you went back there to the water fountain, reached down, you got your drink, and he's like, man, that was pretty good. I hit the spot. And then you reach back down to get another drink, and all of a sudden it's bitter and tastes like sulfur or something. Don't make no sense, does it? You going to go back down for a third drink? Some people would be like, really? I probably would. I'd get just a little taste on the third time. Well, it was sweet that time. It doesn't make any sense. You don't have two things coming out of one fountain. The Bible's telling us here, Christians, this back there where it say, chapter 1, my brethren, that's us. If you're a believer in Christ, this letter is talking to, or this chapter is talking to us, my brethren, Christians, believers in Jesus Christ, followers. You shouldn't have blessings and cursings come out of your mouth. Was it Sunday or Wednesday when Chad was talking about, was it Balaam? And was that 2 weeks ago? Yeah, because you taught Sunday. 2 weeks ago, he was talking about Balaam, and he went, and we know the deal with the donkey there, but, somebody was wanting cursings pronounced from a man who seemed to speak on behalf of God at times and follow God. So it didn't make no sense to go to a man that would bless somebody and ask him to curse somebody. Those things don't go hand in hand. This should be something we can examine our hearts with, examine our lives with. Do these things make sense? If we all slip up and mess up and say things and would love, boy, wouldn't you love to reel them back in? Gosh, man, I've said things before and like, really? And it's out there. You can apologize, you can say whatever, but it's out there. The damage a lot of times is already done. And a lot of times, like we talked about earlier, that damage is very bad. I mean, not only can you ruin people's reputations, but you can really break somebody's spirit with your words. And it's out there. It's almost like it's out there before you realize you've said it. And it's just a bad thing. It's something you got to be careful about. Yet another example there, verse 12. Can the fig tree, my brethren, bear olive berries, either a vine figs? So can no fountain both yield salt water and fresh. I say the Bible is very accurate on that. Those do not go hand in hand. So we've got a dilemma here. We have a lot of trouble with our tongues, if we'll be honest. It's something that we have to work at. The Bible's given us a great description of how dangerous it is, that it's an extension of our heart, what's on the inside. So what do we do about that? We could just close the Bible and take prayer requests and just leave thinking, man, I got a bad tongue. Thankfully, the Bible does give us some direction, some hope. So how do we deal with the poisonous tongue that we have, the unruly and hard to deal with tongue? James chapter 1, verse 19, please, sir. Wherefore, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. Somebody give us a working definition of that. What'd you say? Think before you talk? Have you ever noticed yourself, especially if it's something that you're passionate about or you care about, and I'm not going to talk politics. I don't, even for fun at the home, I don't talk politics, but if the subject of politics comes up and you care about it, and you're in a let's call it a conversation with somebody, and you're really passionate about that, most of the time you're thinking of what you're going to say. You're not listening to what they're saying, right? That's a tough one. If you care about it and you think, man, you don't know what you're talking about. You need to listen to my side, my viewpoint. You ain't even listening. What does the Bible say right there? Be swift to hear. I can think about people in my life, and I don't guess you would know them. I know one you definitely wouldn't know. He was a Methodist minister. He was retired. He looked like John Muir, wore a hard, like an Outback hat. Didn't talk much. Didn't talk much at all unless you asked him. Then he was glad to give you his thought. He just oozed wisdom. I really liked talking to that man. I didn't get to talk to him a whole lot. A few times I did. I was just on the edge of my seat talking to him. And he was just so wise, but he didn't say a lot. He did speak, but it wasn't a lot. If you asked him questions, he was listening to what you said. Be swift to hear, be slow to speak. Listen to other people in your conversations. A lot of times, if you listen really, really close, and you listen, I'm not trying to say put words in their mouth, but if you really listen, you can hear that they're really hurting or they've been done wrong in the past. Somebody might be, talking bad about a preacher or so-and-so, and I ain't going, if you listen, eventually you'll notice, hey, man, they got hurt really bad one time in church, or somebody really, a Christian with a big fish sticker on. I used to have a big fish sticker. Anybody remember that? A big one, like a 20-incher on my back window, fishing for Jesus. God dealt with me about that. If you have one, great. I don't no more for, I think, the right reasons. Still got 5 minutes. We're good. So yeah, we need to. I need to move on. Got 2 more verses and we're good. Swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. When you picture Jesus talking, you know, one thing about the Bible, you don't have tones of voices, and you have words. When I picture Jesus talking, I imagine Jesus as I can't prove it, but as a pretty laid back person. I seen him get pretty upset one time in the Bible. I don't think you had to guess if he was mad. He was mad. He was tearing stuff down. But other than that, I mean, when they would bring a woman and caught in adultery and throw her down in front of them, and they're, you know, you got to picture the energy of the crowd. They're jazzed up. They're revved up. There's energy. There's anger. That's all he does. He's just a calm guy. He was slow to wrath. He did have wrath at the right time, but Jesus was slow to wrath. Good example for us. 2 more and we're done. Colossians chapter 4, verse 6, please, sir. Let your speech be always with grace, seasoned with salt, that you may know how ought to answer every man. Let's just end on that verse right there. That is telling us how to talk to people. Always with grace. Always. Even if they're on the other side of the political aisle. One's red, one's blue. You can't stand what they stand for. They drive a different number race car than what you like. Different football teams, whatever. Always let your conversation be seasoned, or always with grace. Seasoned. Speech be always with grace. Always. If you're going to err on the side of something, err on the side of grace. It's hard to go wrong. But then the Bible does include that, seasoned with salt. You have to be careful. That I tried to remember it today, and I couldn't remember, and I should have looked it up, and I forgot. But there was one of them people like Cotton Mather or somebody that made a statement. For every mile you walk, talking about the Christian life, every mile you walk, there's 2 miles of ditches. Mile of road, 2 miles of ditches, a ditch on each side. You have to be careful not to err on being too soft or being too harsh. I can take you in churches. I had the privilege years ago of going around to a lot of different churches, and I could tell you pretty quick just by listening to the way the people talk, if they were very harsh, they like to use the word spiritual, very regulatory, very strict, and then other churches that some people would call liberal, some people call them evangelical, but they were welcoming to all kinds of different people and seemed to be easier going. And you can go too far either way. You really can. You can go to where there is no guidelines, there is no law of the Lord, just everybody come and do what you want to do, or you can be so strict that nobody can come because they're not perfect enough. So speech is with grace, seasoned with salt. That's a great way to talk. You're gracious to people, but you don't compromise in your beliefs and the truth. You present the truth of the gospel in love and with grace. All right, thank y'all for being here. Let's take some prayer requests, and we'll spend a little bit of time in prayer.